Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well today. We're going to talk about Unit 10, which is North Africa and Southwest Asia. And I'm going to introduce you to all the countries and the cities that you guys need to know for this unit. And then we'll take some time to actually work on the maps for the actual unit as well. So by now you should all have a notes packet. Make sure you have one of those and we'll go through this together. Here is a look of all the countries that we'll cover. Take some time to fill out the map at the very top. Typically what we do is we start on the left-hand side with Morocco and then move our way across. You guys need to fill out these countries that are in the boxes. So if you want to pause the video at this point to fill those out before we get rolling, that'll be fine with me, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. Our first country on the list is Morocco. Morocco is kind of an interesting country in this North Africa unit because they are very European as well as being African due to their close proximity to Spain up here in the north. You can see here that the Strait of Gibraltar is going to be kind of what connects them to Europe, that this small little piece of water doesn't actually keep a lot of influence out from that country. And yet Morocco, has influences from both sides. Their capital city is Rabat, so you want to write that down in there. That's going to be a coastal city, very beautiful, and very close to the very iconic city of Casablanca, which a very famous movie comes out of. All right, second on our list is Libya. As we move across, make sure on the front page of Notes A that you're actually writing these in as we go along. Libya is a very desert-like country. However, they are lucky because they have lots and lots of oil. And therefore, for that reason, Libya is a member of OPEC. Okay, remember OPEC is that organization of petroleum exporting countries. That is an economic union. They are aligned with the other Middle Eastern countries that control a lot of the oil here, as well as Algeria in our region. So Libya does well, considering the environment that is very desert heavy there in the Sahara. Next on our list is Egypt, probably one of the most famous countries that came out of this due to its historical significance. The capital city of Egypt is Cairo, so you can go ahead and write that down in there. And the very important piece that we want to talk about today is the Suez Canal. One of the biggest income producers for Egypt is the fact that they actually control access to the canal, which allows ships to go from the Mediterranean Sea right through this little piece of water here and out into the Red Sea and the Pacific Ocean then as a result. If you look closely at the Suez Canal here, at the top, this would be the Mediterranean Sea. You can kind of see what the canal looks like as it cuts through the desert area there. And then this is the Red Sea. So if I go back to this picture here, again, Mediterranean, they go through the canal, and then they come out to the Red Sea. And, lots of ancient history in Egypt, lots of pyramids and sphinxes you can see here. But in today's world, they are going to control that water flow, and that canal is going to be very, very important for them. Next on our list is Sudan. Sudan's capital city is Khartoum, although you don't need to write that down. Remember that when it comes to Sudan, it has recently been split from north and south. It used to be one entire country. The reason that they split, folks, was religion. Okay, South Sudan is Christian because of its proximity to other Christian nations. North Sudan is Muslim, and so that is why they split. That's why they are no longer a single country because of religion. Moving up into the Southwest Asia piece of our unit, we then look at Israel. Israel's capital city is Jerusalem. All right, so hopefully that name sounds a little bit familiar for you. Israel's kind of an interesting country. They're interesting for several reasons. You'll notice it's kind of an odd-shaped country. The pieces in orange is what Israel is, and what it isn't is this area here called the West Bank, as well as this Gaza Strip. And it's called the West Bank because the Jordan River runs right down through here. And so this is the West Bank of the Jordan River, which is where the country Jordan gets its name. And Israel kind of owns pieces in and around that. And Israel is interesting in this region because it's the only Jewish country in an entire area of Muslim countries, and that has caused a lot of conflict for them. And yet, the reason that Israel still exists today and the reason that it is able to survive is because of its association with the United States. We protect them essentially. All right, moving on to Turkey. You can skip the Palestinian regions of Israel. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry. That would be the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Those are the two regions you want to write down there. Now, moving on to Turkey, and the capital of Turkey is Ankara. A lot of people think the capital of Turkey is Istanbul, but that's not quite right. That's the very important trade city, but that's not their capital. You see that a lot in larger countries. And what's interesting about Turkey is that even though it's a Middle Eastern country, it is actually a part of the military union called NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So, in a lot of ways, Turkey is a very westernized Eastern country, if you will, which kind of can lead to some different outcomes for them. Next on our list is Syria. Syria's capital city is Damascus. All right, I'll point that out to you. I'm sorry. Point that out to you right here. Here's Damascus. That's the capital of Syria. And Syria and Israel do not get along very well. Even though they are neighbors, there is an area in between them called the Golan Heights that is heavily disputed. In fact, I got a chance to go there to the Golan Heights, and I remember stepping off the bus, and our bus driver told us, like, don't say anything that you wouldn't want them to hear because they have radio and they can hear everything you say once you step off the bus. So it was kind of nerve-wracking, and Israel and Syria are not friends in today's world. So there's your disputed land right there, the Golan Heights. Next on our list is the country of Iraq. Iraq's capital city is Baghdad. Now, Iraq has been in our news a lot over the past 15 years as the United States has been heavily involved in going into Iraq for very different regions, for very different reasons. Iraq's southeastern neighbor here is the country of Kuwait. Kuwait is a small little country in terms of size, but very influential due to its access to oil. There's lots of oil in the country of Kuwait and also in this Persian Gulf, which Kuwait has access to, and so they do fairly well for being such a smaller country in a desert area. Next on our list is Iran, or Iran. The capital city is Tehran, which is up here on the northern side. And Iran is actually the former region of Persia. If you ever heard of the Persian Empire, this is basically what Persia was the capital, was Iran, or Iran, I'm sorry. I'm struggling here. And that used to be the Persian Empire. Next on our list is Saudi Arabia. The capital of Saudi Arabia is Riyadh. That's probably not the most popular city in Saudi Arabia because they're much more known for their two Islamic holy cities of Mecca and Medina, as Saudi Arabia is essentially considered the birthplace of Islam, with the Prophet Muhammad being very heavily involved in both Mecca and Medina as his birthplace and one as the area of pilgrimage. To the east of Saudi Arabia is a small little country of Qatar. It's spelled Qatar. Some people do pronounce it Qatar. I've heard it both ways, so I'll allow either one. Its capital city is Doha, but the important piece is that in 2022, in about 4 years, it is going to be home to the World Cup. And that's been under a lot of speculation, but look at some of these stadiums here. You know, Qatar is very wealthy due to the oil trade, and they are going to be building some just wild stadiums here for the World Cup. This one's my favorite. Very, very wealthy and very, very interesting sporting events there. Next on our list is the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. Now, a lot of people get confused about what that is, but an emirate, folks, is a city. And so the United Arab Emirates means United Cities, and there are about 7 emirates within the UAE. The two most popular are Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi is the capital, but the largest emirate or the largest city is Dubai. And so these are probably the two that you hear the most about. They are wildly wildly powerful and wealthy cities. They're probably not what you would think of Middle Eastern cities when you go there. They are incredibly modernized, have incredible ways of thinking about housing and development. Very beautiful areas, very positive um, feel to it. It's also home to the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa, that towers thousands and thousands of feet over the city. And so a very wealthy, modernized area. Some of the wealthiest people in the world live in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And then our last country on the list is Afghanistan. Afghanistan, unfortunately, has been invaded very recently in the past 30 years or so by the Soviet Union and the United States, which has caused to have some conflict for different reasons and sometimes for housing terrorist groups within that country. So those are our countries. Let's now quick take a look over, and I'm going to move quickly and just look at some of our cities that we want to be aware of in our unit. You flip it over, you should have those cities already labeled for you, and I just want to go through the city and the country. The first one is Baghdad, Iraq. So please write that at the very top of that list. Baghdad, Iraq. Now, Baghdad has been under a lot of turmoil and conflict lately. In the 2000s, the United States came in and removed their dictator, Saddam Hussein, tore down that statue. But the city of Baghdad has been around for thousands of years as it sits between two major rivers of the Tigris and the Euphrates. And essentially found almost like an oasis in the middle of a desert area. And they rely on those rivers for their life and for their farming and for essentially everything in terms of water consumption. I'm going to skip that for now. All right, our next major city on the list is Cairo, Egypt. Cairo is the capital of Egypt, and it's built right on the delta of the Nile River. Remember, the delta is where the river kind of fans out. Very beautiful city, very interesting mix of old and new. You can see here in the background, you see the Great Pyramids with all this modernized city. It's kind of an interesting concept in Cairo. And, you can see some of the old with some of the new. Very fascinating. Next on our list is Istanbul. Istanbul is a natural harbor. It's actually located in Turkey, so Istanbul, Turkey. And it is located right here on what's called the Bosporus Strait. Now, we'll talk more about the different straits in there. This used to be a Christian city. Istanbul used to be Constantinople until Muslim invaders took it over and turned Turkey into an Islamic nation. Now, the reason, or the city is essentially built on two waterways, and by building this defensive fort here, they were able to control the flow of goods from the Black Sea to the Mediterranean Sea. And so that became an incredibly influential part, as it was too hard to go this way, as the Caucasus Mountains here. Most Europeans wanted to make their way through Constantinople or through Istanbul at the time. So here's what it looks like in modern day. Because it was Christian for a long period of time and then turned Muslim, you're going to see some examples of both Christian churches and Muslim mosques. The most significant of these being the Hagia Sophia, which is one of the largest mosques in the entire world, located in Istanbul. All right, next on our list is Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a city within Israel, and Jerusalem is probably one of the most recognizable names and cities in the entire world because it's sacred to three different religions. It's sacred to Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, all being monotheistic religions, and is really iconic for the temple that was a Jewish temple originally, then was converted to Christian, and then when Muslim invaders took over, they put the gold dome on top of that temple. You can see here is the actual temple, the square, and so it really has an interesting mixture of all of them. If you remember from our beginning of our year, folks, this is the Western Wall, where a lot of Jewish individuals will go to commit prayers. And it's a very old city and very fascinating. Next on our list is Mecca in Saudi Arabia. This is the holiest city in Islam. It's the home of Muhammad, And this is where Muslims will go once a year, if possible, to make a pilgrimage. And so the pictures you're seeing here are of that pilgrimage. I'll just kind of show you this last one. Pretty fascinating. Like, these are all people in there. It almost looks like ants. And they're all there to see the Kaaba, that black box in the middle. All right, then we're almost there. Next one is Tehran. Tehran is the Iranian capital. In 1979, unfortunately, there was a hostage crisis in Tehran, but it's kind of built in a very beautiful situation there with the Caucasus Mountains in the background. Very wealthy, very Muslim city. Second to last is Dubai. Dubai is the largest city in the UAE, and it's arguably the most developed city in all of the Middle East. It is home, as I mentioned, to the world's tallest building. I showed you that. But it's a very westernized city in the middle of a very Eastern type of living style. So that's Dubai, and that's in the UAE. And then our last city, guys, is Rabat. This used to be a haven for Mediterranean pirates. It's now much more of a coastal city, attracting a lot of Western tourism, but very beautiful, almost tropical-like. And you can see here, it used to be an old fortress for Mediterranean pirates, and we'll leave that on the coast of Morocco. So, all right, I hope you have all your notes filled out, and hopefully now you'll be working on your maps.